Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction House. I'm taking a look at some of the guns that they're going to be selling in their upcoming June of 2016 regional auction. And we have one here that's in no way forgotten, definitely not in the US, but it's an interesting and somewhat unusual gun. There's a little more to the history than some people perhaps realize, and they're kind of cool and unusual, so I figured we should take a look at one. This is a Spanish FR-8. That stands for Fusil Reformado 8. A reconfigured rifle. Now, what was going on, this is from the early 1950s. This particular one is dated 1952. The Spanish had just started transitioning from bolt-action Mauser rifles to semi-auto CETME rifles. Basically the same as what we know today as the H&K G3 or HK91. This was going to be used in the new standard NATO cartridge, 7.62 by 51 millimeter, and the Spanish have all of they're building these new self-loading rifles, but they've got a lot of old Mausers. So what to do? Well, they'll do what most countries do in that sort of situation. They'll rebuild their old Mausers in their new cartridge. And the idea was they can go ahead and use these as training rifles. So they went ahead and not only did they rebuild the rifles in the new caliber, but they also set them up with a lot of the same features and handling, sort of, as the CETME rifles to make them ideal training weapons. Now, in addition to being training guns, they were also used to equip groups like the Guardia Civil, the National Police, reserve troopers, anyone who needed a rifle but didn't need a top-of-the-line rifle, basically. Then you'd have these ammunition-compatible rifles in storage that you could use if and when, wherever you needed them. These ended up seeing service clear into like the 1980s, basically until Spain dropped the 7.62 NATO in favor of the 5.56 NATO. And at that point, they were surplusing them, and a lot of them came into the United States. So these became a fairly popular rifle here in the US because it was a cheap and affordable, simple bolt-action rifle, but it was chambered for 7.62 NATO, which was is a commonly available cartridge. A lot of people like the idea of having a quote-unquote battle rifle cartridge that was still in easy current production. So simpler to get one of these than to get something in 8 Mauser or 7 Mauser or 8 Lebel or one of the older cartridges that's harder to get your hands on. So why don't I bring the camera back? Let's take a look at some of these details and what the Spanish did to really make this an ideal training rifle. We'll go ahead and start with receiver markings. Here on the top of the receiver we have Fábrica de Armas de La Coruña, one of the big Spanish arsenals with a Spanish crest in the center, and this one is dated 1952. These conversions were done in typically the early 1950s. On the right side of the receiver you'll have the marking FR-8, the model, and then the serial number. This is a matching rifle, by the way. The bolt matches, as does, well, everything else. And here on the right side of the receiver we have the caliber marking, Cal 7.62. That is in fact 7.62 NATO. There's some discussion of early underpowered CETME cartridges. None of that is relevant here. These rifles were in standard 7.62 NATO. If you are particularly familiar with that cartridge, you may know that it was not actually adopted by NATO until 1954. However, from about probably 1951 on, the ammunition was available and standardized, and the Spanish, since they were working with the CETME to begin with, they were already looking at this ammunition and they were able to adopt it before NATO did. All right, let's take a look at the business end of this thing. We have here a number of CETME style components. The first off is the flash hider. Do you really need a flash hider on a bolt-action rifle like this? Yeah, maybe not so much. However, the purpose here is that flash hider, just as on the CETME, doubles as a grenade launcher. So you can fire standard 22 millimeter NATO grenades off of that, which is a valuable component to a training rifle, being able to train with that as well. Then we have a tube on the bottom. This basically duplicates the charging handle tube on the CETME. Here, this is used to store cleaning, mostly to store cleaning kit components. However, the main reason that it's there is because it is integral to the bayonet lug right here. Now, on the CETME, you would have the barrel at the bottom, you'd have the charging handle tube here, and this would be your front sight. That's flipped over on the FR-8. The front sight is now this one, barrel in the middle, and this tube on the bottom. So on these guns, the bayonet sits under the barrel, where on the CETME, it would sit on top of the barrel. But that's why this plug is here. Now, to take this out and use it as storage, you need to push this little spring-loaded detent in. So we'll use our universal gun disassembly tool here. There we go. Now we can take this tube out and the end threads off. And you can store whatever, cleaning pull-through, little thing of oil in there, grease, cleaning patches, whatever you want. Like one cartridge maybe, if you want it to rattle a lot. Anyway, that then slides back into there and into position. So that's what this tube is. The front sight is just like you'd get on a CETME, and that's of course to use these in a training capacity. If you have the exact same sight picture, it's that much of a better training experience. So a very well protected front post. All right, the rear sight is also a way to duplicate your CETME sight picture. You have this rotating dial, which gives you 4 different sight pictures. We've got an open notch there, and then 3 apertures. Yeah, there's 1, 2, and 3 over there. So depending on what range you would like to use, 100, 200, 300, or 400 meters, you pick the appropriate aperture or notch. Now the back of the bolt here is a very standard Mauser. These FR-8s were built on the receivers of Spanish M43 Mausers. Those were originally, well, they're a large ring Mauser, originally chambered in 8mm Mauser. So there is discussion of these using an underpowered CETME cartridge, like I said. This is, in fact, straight 7.62 NATO. With a large ring Mauser, there is no problem using these with NATO ammunition. They're totally strong enough. This parkerized finish is correct. That's how the Spanish finished the FR-8 and also the FR-7 rifles, so that's something to expect. And disassembly is just like any standard Mauser. Pull out the release, pull the bolt comes out. It is totally a Model 98 Mauser pattern bolt. So another part of this conversion was shortening the magazine well. There's this block that's been added to the front. That's because the 7.62 NATO cartridge is shorter than 7 Mauser or 8 Mauser, or really any other cartridges that Model 98 Mausers were typically used in a military setting with. So they added that block to shorten it so you don't have the rounds bouncing back and forth in the magazine. Unfortunately, this particular one is missing its follower and spring, so whoever ends up with this rifle will have to replace that. Because this was going to be a general purpose rifle used for infantry training as well as potentially for cavalry or troops in vehicles, it did have a couple of different sling options. So there is a sling bar on the side for a side-mounted sling, and also a swivel on the bottom of the stock. Those are to be used in conjunction with this front sling connection loop. So you'd have a quick detach snap on the front here to go in there. Again, just like you'd get on a CETME rifle. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there have these or have seen them, and they're a really cool little gun. They even have a cool name. They were nicknamed the Cetmeton, which is a conglomeration of CETME and Mousqueton, Mousqueton being carbine. So these are your little bolt-action CETME carbines. This particular one is, of course, coming up for sale here at Rock Island. So if you don't have one yet and you'd like to get this one, take a look at the description text below. You'll find a link there to Rock Island's catalog page on this guy and the several other guns that it comes in a lot with. And if you decide you really like it, you can place a bid right there through Rock Island's website. Thanks for watching.